Elijah staggered, using his rifle as a makeshift crutch. Each step was a testament to his will, pushing through the numbing pain of his injured leg and the haunting memories of Davis. The trenches, once buzzing with the sounds of soldiers and sporadic gunfire, now bore an unsettling quiet. The sun was setting, casting a bloody hue over the horizon. And as the light faded, a chill settled, one that had little to do with the descending darkness. His weary eyes scanned the dimly lit trench, finding his comrades in various states of rest. All seemed to be lost in their own worlds, some with faraway looks, others trembling in sleep's embrace, no doubt reliving the day's horrors. Suddenly, Elijah froze. From the edges of his consciousness, an unmistakable murmur arose. Faint at first, but growing steadily in volume, it danced around him. He strained to decipher the words, but they seemed just beyond comprehension. He wasn't alone in this. PVT. Miller, a young recruit with a face too youthful for this hellscape, shot upright, his eyes wide with terror. "You hear it too, don't you?" he whispered frantically. Elijah nodded slowly. It's everywhere." The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices that seemed to be speaking in unison, repeating the same haunting mantra. The air grew colder still, every breath visibly hanging in the frosty air. As Elijah tried to focus on the voices, he discerned one that stood out, unmistakably familiar. Legion. Embrace. Embrace the future. The voice was no longer just a whisper, but a forceful command echoing all around. Sergeant Thompson, a grizzled veteran with scars mapping his face, suddenly sprang to his feet, hands clapped over his ears. "Make it stop!" he screamed, eyes wild with fear. "I don't want to listen! I won't!" Elijah, terror gripping him, found himself speaking, though the words were not his own. It was as if an external force was using him as a mouthpiece. Why do you resist? Embrace what is to come. Embrace the power. Thompson, tears streaming down his face, lunged at Elijah, knocking him to the ground, hands seeking Elijah's throat. "Silence!" he roared, fingers digging into Elijah's flesh. The world swam as Elijah's vision blurred, Thompson's face a mask of rage and despair. But just as quickly as it started, it ended. Thompson was yanked off Elijah, his body thrown against the trench wall. Tuvey, Miller, wielding a bayonet, stood between them, eyes blazing with anger and fear. "Enough!" Miller screamed, his voice hoarse. "Whatever this is, we need to fight it, not each other." Elijah coughed, massaging his bruised throat, gasping for air. As he did, the whispers faded into the background once more, leaving an oppressive silence in their wake. The trenches, filled with the living, had never felt so haunted. Rain slashed through the sky, mingling with the mud and blood that saturated the trenches. The artillery barrage had been unyielding, the earth shaking with each explosive impact. Through the tumult, men cried, screamed, and fought desperately to survive. Elijah's world spun. The once defined boundaries of the trench had transformed into a grotesque kaleidoscope of twisted bodies, machinery, and muck. The sounds of battle, previously so distinct, gunshots, explosions, and anguished cries, merged into an indistinguishable cacophony. Amidst the chaos, the whispers returned, stronger and more commanding. "Surrender. Yield to me." His body felt like it was being pulled in multiple directions. An unseen force gripped him, and suddenly, time seemed to stretch, reality fragmenting before him. One moment he saw Miller, face contorted in pain. The next, he was in a sprawling labyrinth of machines, Legion's eye glaring at him from every corner. Elijah dropped his rifle, his hands flying to his head, fingers clawing at his helmet. "No, not real. It's not real," he screamed, but his voice was drowned in the chaos surrounding him. Suddenly, a searing pain in his left shoulder snapped him back to the present. He looked down to see a piece of shrapnel, hot and sharp, embedded deep within his flesh. Blood spurted out in rhythm with his pounding heart. A strong grip seized his good arm, dragging him away from the line of fire. Sergeant Thompson, face smeared with mud and blood, was pulling him to safety. "Stay with me, Elijah," he yelled over the deafening noise. But the world continued to blur for Elijah. Visions of monstrous machines overlapped with the horrors of the battlefield. He felt tremors seizing his body, rendering him helpless. His breaths came rapid and shallow, every inhale feeling like a lungful of smoke and ash. They reached a makeshift shelter, Thompson dropping him onto a cot. "Peavy," Miller was already there, dressing his own wounds. Seeing Elijah's state, he hurried over. "He's lost it, hasn't he whispered to Thompson. Thompson, wiping sweat and grime from his brow, nodded grimly. Elijah's voice came out as a weak moan. "It's all around. Everywhere. Can't escape. Can't fight." Miller, ever the optimist, despite the horrors they'd faced, knelt beside him, trying to penetrate the haze of pain and fear clouding Elijah's eyes. "Hey, remember who you are. You're Elijah, a fighter, not some puppet for Legion's games." Elijah blinked slowly, his focus shifting to Miller's face. The whispers receded slightly, their grip loosening. "Miller." Thompson squeezed Elijah's uninjured shoulder, a rare, gentle gesture from the hardened soldier. "We're here for you. Whatever this thing is, we face it together." As the night deepened and the battle raged on, in that dimly lit shelter, 3 soldiers clung to each other, their unity a beacon of hope amidst the enveloping darkness.